'cause I love this land. It takes my breath away.
Welcome to Texas 10. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Steve.
And we spend our weekends and vacations traveling the back roads of Texas. And we've been doing it for 5 years.
We have, and we've written down what we found, and we tell you about it in detail at texas10.com. Go to the field guide section. Like today, we're going to talk about El Paso and El Paso County. And there's no way you can cover it in 10 minutes. So if you're going to be in El Paso or you want to investigate going to El Paso, it tells you where to stay, where to eat, what are the great things to see and do there. Everything you might want to know that would help your trip. So go to texas10.com, like us, subscribe to us on social media, do all those things. But now let's just talk a little bit about the great town of El Paso, Texas.
Man, it is a gem. El Paso really is one of my favorite larger cities in Texas. It may be my favorite.
Well, let's start with the larger part of it, because El Paso's a good size by itself, but Juarez, which is across the border, just right across the border, is like 2 million people. So it is a major metropolitan area, El Paso and Juarez together. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And it has all the things that major metropolitan areas can offer to you in a very unique cultural tradition there. And I like, you say major metropolitan areas and culture, I immediately think of art museums. What did you think of the El Paso Art Museum?
That was one of my favorite stops. The El Paso Art Museum has a permanent exhibit, but it also features short-term exhibits. And the one that was, I can't even talk today, the one that was up the day we were there was all local artists. And my favorite story in that art museum was we were talking to the security guard and he was telling us about the local exhibit. In fact, he had works of art in the exhibit. And he talked about how starting to work in the museum, seeing all the art really inspired him to start painting. I don't know if you remember the one with the truck that you loved.
He was really talented.
He was very talented. And I loved the way that that museum tapped in to the local artists and celebrated them. And I also loved that huge painting of Tim Duncan. Do you remember that?
I do.
That was
Big
great
Spurs
too.
Fans, right? So there was contemporary artists. It's a full-scale museum of art, just like you would see in New York or anywhere else. And they had old masters. They had obviously they had a lot of great Western art. They had contemporary art. And we spent a good several hours in there and could have spent the entire day. So high on your list should be the Museum of Art in El Paso.
And then not far from that was the History Museum, which was really fantastic. They had an interactive history board that you could touch and it would
really
tell
cool.
stories. It would tell stories about the people in El Paso. Very interactive. So even old people like us loved it and young people would really love it.
And then inside the museum itself, it was just a great... Most places have museums that talk about the history of their area. I thought El Paso's was one of the best we had seen.
Right.
And it was, it's not as expansive as the Museum of Art, so you could do it in a couple hours probably. And it was really interesting. And one of the things I'm going to mention is there's a statue on the outside that's into the entrance, and it's honors fighting men from World War II. Read the story about the division or brigade, I forgot, from El Paso and sort of their story and the battles they fought. It's really inspiring and it makes you think. So if you're going there, make sure you stop by the statue. Just don't admire the artwork, but read a little bit about it.
Well, I mean, El Paso is it's right on the border, obviously. And so there are stories from the Mexican Revolution. There's stories from the Civil War. There's the Indians. And
and beyond that, it's home to Fort Bliss, which is one of our largest military installations in the United States. So it's a huge military town to begin with. And like you said, it's steeped in military history. For instance, the place we stayed, the Paso, Paso del Norte, Hotel Paso del Norte.
Yes.
I'm probably not saying that right. I took Latin, not Spanish in high school.
It was spectacular. It is, the rooms were just beautiful. They had a gorgeous bar and restaurant downstairs, and it had a very interesting story back in its early days of how people would stay there and watch the battles against
Pancho Villa. Right.
So it was like almost entertainment for them.
Right.
I thought that was pretty interesting. And there was a really great music scene down there as well at night. There was a great nightlife downtown.
Great nightlife. And it's right on the Commerce Street. I forgot the exact name of the street, but it leads to the bridge that goes over to Mexico. So if you walked out in the morning, I did fairly early in the morning, and you see the sort of the traditional market and all of those sort of vendors. And it was really cool, and it sort of gave you an example of El Paso.
It really brings several, two cultures together beautifully.
Right.
Also, it has a minor league baseball team, the Chihuahuas.
Chihuahuas. Go Chihuahuas. The stadium it's unfortunately the Chihuahuas were not yet playing when we were there, so we missed them. I would love to go back for a game. It's a great looking minor league stadium. It's got mountains in the background, and the air in El Paso, it's so pleasant. It's just less humidity, the desert air, especially if it's not the height of summer. It's just a really nice climate. And to think of a Friday or Saturday night watching the Chihuahuas play, that would be a lot of fun.
Well, the people in El Paso are so nice. In fact, being at that stadium, Steve and I really wanted to see inside the stadium. And so we tend to make friends. And we went they have a store that's open all year round, and actually convinced them to take us into the stadium. They weren't supposed to. And I asked to go to the bathroom, and he was like, well, I was like, I really just want to see the stadium. And so he took us on a little tour of the stadium, and it was just so cool. And then we walked from there all downtown, and there are just beautiful murals all downtown.
Great. There's also, and their downtown is very active, and you've got all sorts of different bookstores, and you've got galleries here and there, a ton of great restaurants, so you could eat your way through El Paso easily. Yes.
Well, speaking of eating,
okay, so we've got one. There's lots of great restaurants.
Lots
in El
of
Paso.
great restaurants. We
got one.
L&J Cafe. It's been there forever. Okay, you all know, if you've listened to us, we love Mexican food, love Tex-Mex. This was the pinnacle. It was the pinnacle.
That's a bold statement in Texas.
It was the pinnacle. It was
Are you
the
sure?
best. I am 110% positive. And just the old restaurant itself, it hasn't changed, I don't think, in 50 years, but
so it's a working man's restaurant, right? And we were there on a Friday night. It was packed, but they got people in and out really well. And I'm going to agree with Melissa. The food was just, they know what they're doing there.
I hadn't experienced anything like it.
It was great. And their traditional dishes with just a twist on them. The interesting thing is beer and wine. You can't get a margarita there. And it's still the best Mexican restaurant in Texas. So bucket list, whatever. If you're in El Paso, do not miss L&J's Cafe.
And then, of course, the culture in El Paso, the Hispanic culture. The churches and cathedrals all over the city are beautiful. We went on one afternoon, we just went from one to the next, and the city is one of the cleanest cities I've ever been in. Everyone, you can tell, they take such pride in their homes, and just all around. The churches were beautiful. It was just really, really pretty.
And the cathedral that we ended up at is one of my favorites in Texas. It's the Cathedral for Friday Night Lights. It is the football field at El Paso High School, which is built into the mountains, and it's a huge stadium. I think it seats 12,000, which is, well, now Allen seats however many. But it was actually the site of the first 3 Sun Bowls, the college Sun Bowls, and it's built in. The high school itself sits immediately behind the stadium, and it's like I feel
it's like the Parthenon, kind of.
It is amazing. It is the best. We just said the best Tex-Mex in Texas. It is the best high school football stadium in Texas, bar none. I loved it.
Oh, well, and the school itself, the architecture of the school was just beautiful.
Henry Trost, who we've talked about in other episodes, he was the architect for the high school.
And so then if you go from there, and if you're at night, you have to take the scenic drive. It takes you up into the hills, and you can overlook the city, both El Paso and Juarez, with all the lights. And over in Juarez, there was that big, in El Paso's the big star. And then over in Juarez, there's another iconic, bright, lit up piece. But we just sat up there for an hour and just marveled at how beautiful it was.
And there's a lot of people that do it. I mean, there's cars that all park, they pull off the scenic drive. Get there for sunset and stay through darkness, because the sunsets in El Paso are spectacular.
It was really, really something special. And then also it's a college town. The University of Texas at El Paso is there. It's a large university now, and it has a medical school, and it's a beautiful campus. But just the area around the university is
college area. And we went to, and I said only one restaurant. We went to a great breakfast place there too. And we could go on and on and on about El Paso. It's way out from most of the population centers in Texas, and I just don't think it gets its due. It's a great visit. We were there at spring break time. It is just the climate, the people, the food, and the football.
And the outdoor opportunities. Right. Guadalupe Mountain's not that far away. You can hike. It's the desert. It's
all of it.
It's
all
of
the
it.
things.
I think it might be my favorite, other than I love San Antonio. It's where I grew up, but I loved El Paso. So 2 thumbs up to El Paso.
Well, we are beyond out of time.
Oh.
Right. So we appreciate you sticking with us. Like us, subscribe to us. If you want to know more about El Paso or any of the places we talked about, please go to texas10.com and look at our field guides.
And keep coming back to Texas 10.
Bye.
Talking about you, and I love this land. It takes my breath away. From the Palo Duro to the Gulf Coast plain, from the heart of the hill country to the piney wood shade, I love this land. It takes my breath away.